All right, hey guys, I am here to talk to you today about yet another way to do long division. Remember, in math, there are lots of ways to get to the answer. There's normally only one right answer, but how you choose to get there is whatever makes sense in your brain. So we racked our own brains to figure out another way to teach you long division because we know it's one of those skills that's very difficult. All right, so what we're going to do today is teach you the rooms method. Now you've already seen and worked with the methods that talks about dad, mom, sister, brother, rover to divide, multiply, subtract, bring down, repeat, or remainder. You've also done does McDonald's serve burgers roasted, again, which means divide, multiply, subtract, bring down, repeat, remainder. So what we're going to do today is actually the rooms method, and it kind of came from the fact that we always say the big number in the house. So let's take a look at this example problem. We've got 154 divided by 3. The first number always goes in the house. So if we think about this as a little house, 154 is split up in this house with one number in each room, okay? So what we're going to do is we're actually going to divide each room separately. We thought that might help you understand how we split up a number in order to do long division. So it's going to be the same start to the problem. We're first going to divide. So we need to ask ourselves, how many times does 3 go into 1? Well, you can't put a size 3 foot into a size 1 shoe. So it goes in 0 times. And I'm going to write that on the roof of the house. The next step is to multiply, same as before. What is 0 times 3? Well, 0 times 3 is 0. Then we subtract, just like we have been. 1 minus 0 is still 1. Now here's where it goes a little bit differently. Instead of bringing down, we're actually going to move that 1 to the next room. So I'm going to take that 1, follow my arrow, and I'm going to put the 1 into the room next door. That number is now 15, and I'm going to start over. I have got to divide this room as well, so let's go back to the beginning. How many times does 3 go into 15? Well, I know 3 times 5 is 15, so I know it's going to be 5 times. I'm going to put that on top of the room. I'm going to multiply 5 times 3, which equals 15. I'm going to subtract, and I'm going to get 0. Now I've got to move that 0 to the next room. I've got to keep moving things until I have all of the rooms finished. And once I've moved that 0 over to the next room, I start back over again. I've got to divide this room as well. So how many times does 3 go into 4? Well, that only goes in once. I'm going to write that on top of the house. What is 1 times 3? It's 3. Going to subtract and get 1. I have no more rooms, so that's going to be my remainder. The quotient to this problem is 51, remainder 1. It's what's on top of the house. I've divided each of those rooms and I've gotten my quotient. So just to double check ourselves, let's do 154 divided by 3, which is the same problem. Let's do it more traditionally. Let's do it the long division way that you guys are familiar with. I'm going to put the first number in the house, 154. That's my dividend. My divisor is 3. And I'm going to do my does McDonald's serve burgers roasted, or divide, multiply, subtract, bring down, repeat. All right, how many times does 3 go into 1? It doesn't, so I need to make my line longer. How many times does 3 go into 15? That's 5 times, because 5 times 3 is 15. I have to subtract now. 15 minus 15 is 0. I have somebody to bring down. I'll take down my 4. And I start over again. 3 goes into 4 one time. 1 times 3 is 3. I have to subtract. 4 minus 3 is 1. I have nothing left to bring down, so I'm finished. So my answer is 51, remainder 1, which is exactly the same answer I got when I did the rooms model. Remember, there are lots of different ways to get to the correct answer in math. There's almost always just one correct answer. However, how you get to that answer is whatever makes sense to you. So let's do a couple more problems using that rooms model just to give you another option. All right, at this point, I do need to apologize if you hear my dog crying or barking in the background. The kids are outside cleaning up the yard, and she really wants to go help pick up all those sticks, so I apologize for any background noise. Now, let's take a look at this problem. It's 562 divided by 5. The first number always goes in the house. So I'm going to draw the house. Only this time, I'm going to give it rooms. So this has 3 digits in the number, so I'm going to give it 3 rooms. I'm going to put the 5 in one room, the 6 in the second room, and the 2 in the last room. And I'm dividing by 5, so he's outside the house. Remember, it kind of still goes with that whole thing. Big number in the house. It's just this time the house has rooms. And now I'm going to start the same way I'm used to dividing. How many times can 5 go into 5? Well, that's kind of easy. I know 5 can go into 5 one time because 1 times 5 is 5. Then I'm going to subtract just like always. Now here's where it gets different. Instead of bringing anything down, I'm actually going to move my 0 to the next room. And I'm going to draw the arrow to tell me to do that. I moved my 0 over there. My room is ready. I'm going to divide this room now. How many times does 5 go into 6? 5 goes into 6 just one time because 1 times 5 is 5. I'm going to subtract. 6 minus 5 is 1. And then I'm going to take that 1 up to the other room and make that 2 into a 12. I've got a new number in that room. I'm going to divide the room. I have to divide every room until I'm finished. How many times can 5 go into 12? Well, I know 5 times 2 is 10 and 5 times 3 is 15, so that's too much, so it's got to be 2. 2 times 5 is 10. I subtract, and I get 2. I have no more room, so I am finished. So my remainder is 2. The quotient of 562 divided by 5 is 112, remainder 2. It's the same process, and if I work this out with the long division method, either does McDonald's serve burgers roasted or father, mother, sister, brother, it's going to come up with the same answer. This one's just a different way of doing it. Let's take a look at a problem that's got a 2-digit divisor. I've got 732 divided by 15. It's going to be the same process. 732 is the first number, so it goes in the house. There's my house, 732, but I'm going to give it rooms because this house has 3 rooms. It's a 3-digit number, and I'm dividing by 15. How many times can 15 go into 7? Remember, I'm going to start the same way. I'm just going to divide every room separately. So if I look at this first room and I've got a 7, how many times does 15 go into 7? It can't. You can't put a size 15 foot in a size 7 shoe, so that's going to be a 0. 0 times 15 is 0. I subtract. I get my 7, which goes right up here into the next room. How many times does 15 go into 73? Guys, at this point, I think you know me well enough to know I don't know my 15 facts, so I have to do a little cheese dip. So I'm going to think to myself, right, I know 15 times 2 is 30, so 15 times 4 would be 60. So I'm going to try 15 times 5. Do a little cheese dip over here. Cheese dip never hurt anybody. 5 times 5 is 25. Carry my 2. 5 times 1 is 5 plus 2 is 7. That's 75. That's too much, so it's going to be 4. So I'm going to put my 4 up top, and I know that 4 times 15 is 60 because I know twice 15 is 30, and that's how my brain works. So I'm going to subtract. 3 minus 0 is 3. 7 minus 6 is 1. I've got 13. I've got to move that up here into the other room. I didn't leave myself quite enough room, so I'm going to scooch my room line over because you guys are using pencils, so that's easy to do. Now I've got to do 15 divided into 132 because I've got to start every room over. Y'all know I'm going to have to do some cheese dip because I don't know my 15 facts. So I'm thinking to myself, if 15 times 5 is 75, I think I'm going to try 15 times 9 and see what I get. 9 times 5 is 45. Carry my 4. 9 times 1 is 9. Plus 4 more is 13. 135 is going to be too much. Let me do 15 times 8. Checking out my cheese dip here. Remember, guys, no matter how much cheese dip you do, cheese dip's delicious. Do as much as you want. 8 times 5 is 40. Carry my 4. 8 times 1 is 8 plus 4 is 12, so it's 120. So I know that has to be it because I know 9 is too much. So I'm going to put my 8 up here in the quotient. 8 times 15, I just did my cheese dip, is 120. And then I'm going to subtract. 2 minus 0 is 2. 3 minus 2 is 1. And then I have no more rooms, so I'm finished. So I know my remainder is 12, and I'm okay with that because 12 is a big remainder, but it's not bigger than my divisor, so I know I did it right. The quotient to this problem is 48, remainder 12. And I'm going to leave my cheese dip on that paper so that my teacher can see that I really worked this out. All right, this is going to be your last example. And I've got a 4-digit number divided by 10. So I'm going to do the first number in the house, 1,489 is in the house. 1,489 is a 4-digit number. So how many rooms am I going to have? I'm going to have 4 rooms. And it's divided by 10. So he's going to be outside the house. And then I'm going to divide each room by itself. So my first room, 10 goes into 1 how many times? Well, we know that's a 0. You can't fit a size 10 shoe, or size 10 foot into a size 1 shoe. 0 times 10 is 0, which equals, oops, sorry about that, got distracted by the dog. 1 minus 0 is 1, and I know my next step is to take that 1 to the next room. I've taken my 1 to the next room, and now I can divide 10 into 14. How many times does 10 go into 14? 10 goes into 14 1 time. 1 times 10 is 10. I subtract. 4 minus 0 is 4. 1 minus 1 is 0. So I'm going to take that 4 to the next room. And I'm going to start over again. I start over every time I go to a new room. How many times can 10 go into 48? I know that 10 times 4 is 40, and that's as close as I can get. I love it when my divisor is an easy one like 10. 4 times 10 is 40. I'm going to subtract. 8 minus 0 is 8. 4 minus 4 is nothing. And I've still got one more room to go, so I'm going to take that 8 over to my other room. Every time I go to a new room, I have to start over. That's right. How many times can 10 go into 89? I know it's got to be 8 because 10 times 8 is 80 and 10 times 9 is 90, and that'd be too much. So I'm going to put an 8 up there. 8 times 10 is 80. I'm going to subtract. 9 minus 0 is 9. 8 minus 8 is nothing. I have no more rooms, so I am finished. So my remainder is 9. That's okay. That seems kind of big, but the divisor is bigger than the remainder, so I have done it right. So my quotient is 148, remainder 9. Again, this is just one more way to do long division. It looks very different than anything that, honestly, I've ever done before. It's probably very different than anything your parents have done before, but what we're doing is trying to give you just one more way to solve long division because we know it is a very difficult skill. So if you find this useful, that's excellent. You can choose to do it this way. You can choose to do does McDonald's serve burgers roasted, or you can choose to do dad, mom, sister, brother, rover. Whatever makes sense to you is how you should do long division. What we really want you to do is get the right answer. Hope this helps, guys.